In his autobiography, White Line Fever, I remember reading Lemmy. He wrote the early '78 was another sort of bleak time for Motörhead. They'd sort of they're going to break up in '77, and they got a chance to make the album, their first album, and so that gave them a bump up and all this sort of thing. But uh, they'd sort of gone back down in '78. The gigs were sporadic; they were gigging here and there. They kind of lost momentum, as it were. I mean, by now they were respected and all this sort of thing, but they weren't going to last forever. Just carry on doing the same old circuit. So it's almost like they'd had a false start with that album, and they were back to kind of, if not quite as bad as it was at the very beginning when they were living off speed and porridge. As Fast Eddie said, uh, pretty much starving in squats. They were still, nothing was happening, and Fast Eddie and Filthy Phil, they'd done that thing of, what's it, the Muggers? They were going to go off and join that band. They did a tape of it, which I've heard once. It didn't do anything for me. So anyway, but gigs were here and there and all this sort of thing. They'd gone. Tony Secunda had taken them over. Their troubled relationship with Doug Smith, they were on and off with him, and they were off again. They'd gone for Tony Secunda, and but he basically kind of abandoned Motörhead. He got hold of Chrissie Hynde. He was paying her. She wrote a weekly sort of wage to write songs for what became the Pretenders, her band, the Pretenders, obviously global superstars. So, he sort of abandoned Motörhead. But anyway, so in the midst of all that, they got this gig offered to them in February, early 1978 at the Roundhouse, which Lemmy once memorably described as the scene of many a debauch. And it was all, this gig was organised for a number of bands. Another one was the Count Bishops, who Motörhead performed with, but they were also on Chiswick Records. Wilko Johnson of Dr. Feelgood had organised this gig to raise money for the preservation of manuscripts by William Wordsworth, right, the great English romantic poet. You couldn't make this stuff up, could you? So yeah, that was the pub rockers were determined to preserve this glorious English poet's works. So yeah, but Motörhead probably just quite pleased for the gig. I've got it. I bought it on record, and it's very much when they're still in their kind of. I want hard pub rock. I'd say more hit the much heavier side of pub rock. But there's that world of difference, even '78 and '79, when they actually got their first album stuff and they became kind of Motörhead. That genre started. Even '78, I mean, it's still a rocking band who I'd have loved to have seen. But I once heard something interesting from someone who'd seen Motörhead in '78, and he said he always preferred them before they became Motörhead, if you know what I mean. The double bass kit, the Overkill, and then on Ace of Spades Bomber and all that sort of thing. He said he preferred it when they were, they're playing stuff like Basingstoke Technical College and stuff. They were on that kind of level. And so, reviews of them, they were just that memorable one that was, their backline looked like a shanty town. So they've just been touring incessantly and that. But he said it was much more. It was just his opinion. It was just interesting. It's like it's just a different band, and I hear it. Obviously, I wasn't around to see it, but you hear it if you've got all the bootlegs of them in '77 or '78, like the Blitzkrieg in Birmingham, and this one. What's Wordsworth? These sort of live recordings, well, not bootlegs, but sort of stuff that was put out later when they became much more famous, and you just hear how much they changed. Anyway, but this gig, so it's still very much rooted in their heavy pub rock type things, and this thing of playing old Hawkwind covers or old Hawkwind songs. If Lemmy wrote them, they weren't covers technically. I think they opened with The Watcher, and then the Mighty Iron Horse, which always makes me laugh because I'm playing this to a mate, and he went, "What?" Because he says, Lemmy introduces it. He says, "I know what's born to lose, especially for," and he says his name, Doc Clobber or something. Apparently, it was someone to do with the Hell's Angels. But if you're English and you're aware of the soap opera EastEnders, basically it's about a fictional little town in the East End of London. What mate, you talking about in it? And but there's this old sort of woman who runs a laundrette, and she's always smoking. She's called Dot Cotton. And my mate said, "Did he just introduce a song for Dot Cotton?" I know Born to Lose, especially for Dot Cotton. Oh, lovely dear. Oh. Anyway, it's a bit weird one, but I remember cracking up about that. Where was I going? Yeah. So it's good, but it was in that sort of, yeah. So that I've already said, that kind of when we were a bit lost again. And Ian's us on parole, and Lemmy says, this. I believe Larry Wallace in the audience tonight. Yeah, I believe he is. This is one of his numbers that I pinched. And then I think Eddie hits an E chord, and Lemmy says it's an A. But I wonder what Larry Wallace thought then, whether he was starting to, oh shit, God, man, maybe I should have stuck with this band. There should have been two guitarists, and I should have been one of them. Always wondered about that. It's interesting he was at the gig. And apparently Mick Farron came up to record one track with them, but that was left off the album for some reason. Weirdly. Lost Johnny, it's not on the album. Mick Farron, who wrote, he co-wrote some early songs of Motörhead, like Keep Us on the Road. I think he did some of the lyrics. Yeah, but otherwise you got the usual, well, you got early Motörhead track, the earliest one ever, White Line Fever. The rest is all very much sort of Leaving Here, I'm Your Witch Doctor, Train Kept a Rolling, that sort of classic pub rock thing. And so, yeah, and there's some contractual reason they couldn't perform under the name Motörhead. Motörhead's that confusing label and management problems they just always had, so they had to record it as Iron Fist and the Horse from Hell. That's what they performed under. So it seemed bleak for the moment, but they were going to once again, Lemmy said shortly after this, they said, let's have another go at trying to crack this. And they had to listen to a load of covers, and they chose Louis Louis, and they went back to Doug Smith. Doug Smith said, "No, fuck you. You turned your back on me already, and I think twice already." They went, "Oh no, come on, man, come on, take this on." And then they managed to get on top of the Pops, and that really saw their ascent then. But so that at this time they were respected on the scene, as it were, but they couldn't seem to break out of that, and they weren't going to be able to continue doing it indefinitely. But as an album, it's quite good. Who were on? So Ted Carroll, who's the first label there on Chiswick Records. I mean, he said that it may not be the greatest live album ever recorded. It's certainly not the greatest live Motörhead album ever recorded, but it stands as a testament to a band that had the balls to keep on keeping on. I think that's pretty true. But I mean, I think it's a pretty good live album. It's got the punch of a Motörhead gig, and catches their sound perfect at that time. Sort of for the Motörhead historian, it doesn't sound too pretentious. It definitely catches Motörhead, how they sounded, how they were at that particular time. And I love the fact Wilko Johnson asked them to perform. And actually, there's a picture of Lemmy. It's a picture of Dr. Feelgood on stage, like the classic Lee Brillo, who was a vocalist of Dr. Feelgood, Lee Brillo and Wilko period. But you can see Lemmy's face. He's backstage, like peering out from behind an amplifier, and that's that classic Wilko Johnson story of after some gig, might even have been this one. They went to some party, and Wilko Johnson was trying to Motörhead's road crew started fighting with each other or something, and Wilko Johnson was trying to break it up. So yeah, they seemed they were mates. Yeah, but as an album, I quite like it. It's good. It's good. The quality is reasonable and all the rest of it, and it catches Motörhead perfectly as they were at that time.